Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Neither Did It Remember the Latter End of It. And this is dealing with the atrocities that were committed upon the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere, known as the New World, Canada, North America, Central America, South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean islands as they became to be known later on, which is the place where the 10 tribes of the nation of Israel, known as the Northern Kingdom, fled to during the time of the Assyrian conquest of the nation of Israel. Now, I've had a couple of articles for the last few days, just kind of meditating on them, just trying to find some information, to put something together, and a lot of resources when it comes to the persecution and genocide of the Northern Kingdom, so-called, Indian tribes, the known today as the Native American Indians, so-called Native American Indians, and the so-called Latinos, of Negroid and Indian descent. And there's a lot of, fragmentary info out there. There's not that much information out there, and not a lot of people really speak about it as much. That's why, for the most part, it's kind of like swept under the rug, inside joke. But there's a lot of shit that went on here in the so-called New World prior to the Southern Kingdom coming here. But the most prevalent is the transatlantic slave trade, and slavery, which is important to know also, because that's the head tribe with some of the other two of the other tribes that make up the Southern Kingdom. But there's not a lot of info out there, and I mean, it was recorded. There are memoirs of Christopher Columbus, or Cristobal Colon, that devil. And in his memoirs, he said if he was to be remembered by anything, he said he should be remembered by not putting his sword down, no, not for an hour. And he pretty much did that. He came here to conquer. That was his intentions. When he got here, the very first thought in mind, when he saw the kindness, and the beauty and the well-built men and women of the Taino people, which are the tribe of Ephraim, and you also had Manasseh, Simeon, because you had the Arawaks, the Taino, so on and so forth. He thought, with 50 men, I can subdue all these people. And that's the mind of Esau. That's why the scriptures speak about Esau, the so-called white man or the wicked, as being a serpent. The serpent is estranged from the womb. They come out as soon as they be born speaking lies, because that is his whole intention. The thief cometh not for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. So like I said, I linked some of, I didn't say it yet, but I linked some of these I linked the articles in the description box for those of you brothers and few sisters that are interested to go into it and read further, because I'm just going to get certain points. And I got a couple of precepts really, but rely solely on the Spirit, on the Holy Spirit to guide me, to bring you more scriptures to show you about the retribution that's going to take place and the payback that these devils are going to have to pay for, when the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai comes back to deliver us. So the first one I have here is called Genocide of Indigenous Peoples. All right. So I'm going to read a little bit of this article. This is on Wikipedia, but there's plenty other information out there you can get. And like I always like to say that deaths that they give you out there of how many people were conquered and destroyed and disease ridden and just total, as the article is called, genocide, is just an estimation of what happened. It's not a full detailed account of everything that took place. So it says genocide of indigenous peoples. So the genocide of indigenous peoples, colonial genocide, or settler genocide, and that's exactly what these devils did, is the elimination of indigenous peoples as a part of the process of colonialism, because they can't claim a land if there are people already there. So what they have to do, as they always do, is find a way to get rid of those people or to enslave those people or find a way to trick them into taking their resources and their lands. So according to certain genocide experts, including Raphael Lemkin, the individual who coined the term genocide, colonization, is intrinsically genocidal. And it's true, because colonization, or when you taking over people and imposing your will on them, you end up slaughtering, murdering, raping, and doing all kind of stuff in order for your will in your way to be imposed upon them. Lemkin saw genocide via colonialism as a two-stage process. Number one, the destruction of the indigenous group's way of life. Because when these devils came here, although Jake by this point, you're talking about, almost the 1500s. So by this point, Jake was going off, how they love to worship idols. Among the so-called Taino, Boricua, Indians, so-called, you had a group of gods. This is prior to the Yoruba, the Orishas, from the western coast of Africa arriving here. You had something called semis, Semi. I think sometimes they spell it Zemi. And those semis were miniature statuettes of different gods that they were worshiping. Just like today, if you know anything, and like one thing that Apostle Tar said years ago was that if you've never been around the tribes like Puerto Ricans or Dominicans or other tribes, South American tribes, you don't know anything about them. So when you read the scripture is not going to make sense to you because you don't know anything about that particular tribe. But when you grow up around them, you pick up on a lot of different things. Now, with the so-called Puerto Ricans, which are the tribe of Ephraim, you have whether it's in their car, the older ones, I don't know if they don't really do it that much now, but the older generation of Ephraim, they used to have them so-called them statues, miniature statues of what they call the saints, all in their car, at home, on the wall. They have shrines to them, and that was indicative of what? Of the whoredom or the worshiping of the idols of the northern kingdom. And the southern kingdom was doing it too, right? So you have something called semis. Matter of fact, let me just get that real quick. Let me try it this way. Right? It says semis are sculptured from a wide variety of materials, including bone, clay, wood, shell, sandstone, and stone. They are found in Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and other Caribbean islands. Some are quite large, up to 100 centimeters tall. All right, so they had bigger ones. See here, you have semis, ZEMI or CEMI. Sometimes I've seen it spelled SEMI, but I think the main spelling is ZEMIS, which is plural. As you can see, all these different types, you know. See, ritual objects of the ancient Taino of the Caribbean islands. All right. So you had all of that. All right. So let's go back. So number one, the destruction of the indigenous groups' way of life, which is what destroy them, because they had written records. Some of them, they practiced the laws. The so-called not so-called, the Ten Commandments. But Esau stripped that from them to bring about their form of, Christianity, which by this point was known as Renaissance Christianity, because this is when it was fresh. It says, followed by two, the settlers' imposition of their way of life on the indigenous group, which reminds you of who? Vocab. They're trying to shove that plantation Christianity down our throats. But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai, we ain't having it. The Lord liberated us from that madness. And you trying to bring us back into darkness. Slipping into darkness. No, sir. It says other scholars view genocide as associated with but distinct from settlers' colonialism. The expansion of various Western European colonial powers, such as the British and Spanish empires, and the subsequent establishment of colonies on indigenous territories, frequently involved acts of genocidal violence against indigenous groups in Europe, the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. And we're mostly focused on the so-called Americas because this is where the tribes went to. Now you have Israelites scattered throughout all of these. Okay? So I just want to jump down to because they break the word down here. The modern concept of genocide was coined in 1944 by Raphael Lemkin. So this is a compound word that was created to explain pretty much the murdering of a race of people. It says new conceptions require new terms. By genocide, we mean the destruction of a nation or of an ethnic group. This new word, coined by the author to denote an old practice in its modern development, is made from ancient Greek word genos, which is race, tribe, and the Latin side, killing. So genocide, race killing. Okay, so that's the main point there. You can read more if you want. There's more to the article, right? And it gives you different, Edomite nations that conquered different nations, so on and so forth. So this here is known as the Taino genocide. All right, Taino were Indian, so-called Indian, or the tribe of Ephraim, that were on the, so-called islands prior to Benjamin and Levi and certain Judites being brought there, So it says the Taino genocide was committed against the Taino indigenous people by the Spanish during their colonization of the Caribbean during the 16th century, which was the 1500s. The population of the Taino before the arrival of the Spanish Empire on the island of Hispaniola is what today you call Dominican Republic and Haiti, in 1492, which Christopher Columbus baptized as Hispaniola. is estimated at, see, remember estimation, estimated. Estimated is just a guess or a rough number. It's not an actual account. It's an estimation. So all of these, deaths of the transatlantic slave trade, these are estimations. The deaths and the amount of Israelites that were here in the Americas was an estimation. Because remember, even Balaam had sense enough to say you can't even count. Matter of fact, let's get that. The fourth part of Israel. Let's get that just to, get us a precept in there. And hopefully, as we keep going through this, it's edifying, because that's the main thing. We do lessons to edify. Right, I started at 9. Numbers 23 and verse 9. For from the tops of the rock, from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people, Israelites, shall dwell alone, because the Lord separated us from these nations, and shall not be reckoned or recognized or counted among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob? So you can't even count the dust of Jacob, which would be a small number, and the number of the number of the fourth part of Israel. So you couldn't even number the fourth part of Israel. That's how many Israelites the Lord promised to Abraham, that he would make his seed as the sands of the sea, or as the stars of heaven, for multitude. This wasn't given to all nations. This was given to the Israelites. Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. Right, because he wanted to be an Israelite, because the Lord allowed him to see in the future what Israel was going to do to the nations, including his nation. So let's go back to the Taino genocide. So it's estimated at between 10,000 and 100,000. So it can't be 10,000. It's a whole lot more than that. 100,000 estimation. But remember, one of the tribes of the northern kingdom's name is Ephraim. Ephraim goes back to the Hebrew word aparium, which is which is a shortened form of anya. Anya means I, or I am. And then the par is fruit. Paryum is fruits, because the yum makes it plural masculine. Aparium, or Ephraim, I am fruitful. And that was something that the Lord promised, because he knew that through the different captivities there was going to be great slaughters, and none of the tribes of Israel would ever perish. The one that came closest to being extinct was Benjamin, when they pretty much took on the whole nation of Israel, just the one tribe, and they got slaughtered down to, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, 400 men, because they killed the women, the children, and I think it was just 400 warriors that among Benjamin that was left. And from that's why in the couple of places, but I think also know it that's in Psalms, it calls them Little Benjamin. It wasn't called Little Benjamin because they were the youngest. It was called Little Benjamin because they got slaughtered down to a very small number. All right. So all the tribes none of the tribes would ever, be destroyed completely. It said the Spanish subjected them to slavery, massacres, and other violent treatment after the last Taino chief was deposed in 1504, which the Taino chiefs, their names were called caciques. All right, the caciques which were the chiefs. It says by 1514, the population had reportedly been reduced to just 32,000 Taino. And like I said, this is an estimation. So how can in one part of it said it was estimated that there were about 10,000, but then they got reduced to 32,000? That doesn't math up. By 1565, the number was reported at 200. And by 1802, they were declared extinct by the Spanish colonial authorities, which is not true. And there's, I don't know if it's in this particular article or in the next one, where they were saying that that was made up by the Spaniards, by the Spaniards, that the Taino were eradicated and were extinct so that they can justify taking over the lands. All right. So you got to watch these devils. They're very crafty. All right. It says, however, descendants of the Taino continue to live, and their disappearance from record. Oh, it's right here. Their disappearance from records was part of a fictional story created by the Spanish Empire with the intention of erasing them from history. See? Why? Because they knew that eventually, in the latter end, it will come back to bite them in the ass. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. It's just like somebody, right, that is a career criminal, just a piece of shit all around, but they're in a prominent position of authority. And the people, for the most part, the majority of people don't know that he's a scumbag like that, but he worked his way through that underworld, so to speak, and became like a mayor or a senator or somebody in a prominent position. And nobody out there, for the most part, few people know, but most of the people don't know how he clawed his way to get there. Then later on, the scandals start coming out and the truth start coming out, and that's what Esau is. He got this glory in the world, but when you really analyze everything that they did, it was all shameful to get to where he's at, and that never lasts. Matter of fact, let's get the Ecclesiasticus. Can we get browse the Bible? Here we go. Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 and verse 8 says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. See? So what is that other one? Not by right. Yep, Jeremiah 17:11. As the partridge sitteth on eggs and hatcheth them not, so he that getteth riches and not by right, see, shall leave them in the midst of his days, and at his end shall be a fool. And Esau is the biggest fool on the planet. All right, and they really believe in their heart of hearts that they're going to get over on the Most High. Show you how retarded these devils are. So going back to Habakkuk 2 and 16, thou art filled with shame for glory, drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand, which is what? His righteousness, shall be turned unto thee. First through revelation, then later on through the judgment. And shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. So this facade, this fake persona, this fake, veneer that you have to the world is going to be eventually stripped from you, and the world is going to know for sure who you really are. The word for shameful spewing is kwaya one. Disgrace, shame. See, shameful spewing. Let's see what it says. See if it'll define it. Okay, let's just see if we put in definition what would come up. Shameful spewing definition. Come on, baby. Thou art filled. Okay, now they're just going to give you the scripture. All right. Matter of fact, since we're there, let's go to the NLT. Let's go to the NLT. But soon it will be your turn to be disgraced. Why? Because you disgraced the world. Another one is, let's see. Let's see if I do this, see if it'll come up. Yep. Isaiah 33:1. Woe to thee that spoilest, meaning robbed, and thou was not spoiled. Nobody did this. No, the Israelites from the northern kingdom that were here, in the so-called new world, didn't do anything to you for you to turn around and treat us that way, pretty much. It tells you that, our chiefs, the caciques, they came and they made sure that the men, the other men that were there, got your stuff off of your ships meticulously and put it on the beach meticulously and made sure that there was nothing missing. But we're savages, right? We're the savages. But the chiefs and the other men that were, that were real, went on your ships, took your stuff off, and made sure that everything was there and that nothing was missing. And what was your thanks to us? Conquered us, took our lands, raped our women, killed our men, put us in slavery, shipped us off to so-called Europe as slaves. When you couldn't find the amount of gold and silver that you really wanted, you figure, well, might as well make some money somehow, because you know that whatever he found in this side of the world, it was already decreed by papal bull that he would get. I believe it said that he would get like 10%. If I'm not mistaken, he would get like 10% off of that. So he had to make some kind of money. So what did he do? He couldn't find the gold that he wanted. So he put, the Israelites in slavery. So woe to thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, when you stop spoiling, when you had enough, thou shalt be spoiled, which you never have enough, but you slowing down a little bit, not really, but you slowing down. And when thou shalt make an end of dealing to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. So what say ye about this vocab? Goddamn devil. That's retribution, payback, vengeance. When the Lord said vengeance belongs to me, yes. Wait for the Lord. He going to give us the vengeance. But who is he going to use to exact that vengeance? Us. And I will recompense Esau, pretty much, just merely paraphrasing, by the hand of my people Israel. All right. So let me get rid of this. Go back to Habakkuk 2 in the NLT. But soon it will be your turn to be disgraced. Habakkuk 2:16 in the NLT. Come, drink, and be exposed. That's what's happening. You've been exposed, but now you're in the sentencing stage. We're way past the discovery. All right. Drink from the cup of the Lord's judgment, and all your glory will be turned to shame. All right. Turn to shame. You're going to be turned to shame. Let's see. NIV, you will be filled with shame instead of glory. Now it is your turn. Drink and let your nakedness be exposed. We drank. Now it's your turn to drink. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover you, will cover your glory. Matter of fact, since this one came to mind, let's get this real quick, and then if Spirit allows, we'll get back to the article. Jeremiah 49:12. For thus saith Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup, who's that? Us, the Israelites, have assuredly drunken. And there's no mistake. There's no, well, did the Israelites really go into captivity? Did, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, did they really suffer slavery and, and under the so-called white man? Yes. All you need to do is check the records. That's why when them devils at Tea Party were trying to get up into office, what did they want to do? They wanted to remove slavery out of the Bible. I'm sorry, they did that already during the time of slavery, but they wanted to remove slavery out of the history books because that is a shameful history that they have to deal with, that they have to, they have to be constantly reminded of, let alone how they got this land. I'm talking about from Canada all the way down to South America and everything in between. So all of these things are shameful spewing. This is like a shame to them. It says, so we drink, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Here it is. We are the apple of the Lord's eye, meaning his special treasure, his most prized possession. And we had to go into slavery. We had to get beat down and jacked up. So you think you, a nobody like you, a base person, the wicked, you're not going to pay for what you've done? And you went overboard. Scriptures even tell us that. Lord was but a little displeased, and you helped forward the affliction. So you got to pay. Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Drink of what? Drink of the cup of slavery. Whatever you've done, it's going to be done unto you. So you want to know what your retribution is? Look up Esau, Edom in the scriptures, and you'll see what your retribution is. Then go back into the history and look at all the atrocities that the so-called white man has done, so-called Europeans. Well, before they got here, when they got here, the so-called Indians, they were enslaving each other, killing each other. So what? That does not absolve you of your crime. Just because someone else is doing something that you're doing doesn't mean that you're going to get away with your crime. You still got to pay. You motherfuckers like to always push the blame on somebody else. You got to pay, and you're going to pay, whether you like it or not. Matter of fact, now I'm getting mad. Let's go to Job 34. I believe it's Job 34. Let me just try it like this. Job 34. Nope, that's not the one. Job 34:33. Should it be according to thy mind? So is the judgment that the Lord is going to bring upon you going to be according to your mind, according to what you believe, according to how you should, be judged? How did that work out? Well, let's go back. When you were in charge, when you were on top, when you murdered Israelites, what'd you do in the courts? You gave the so-called white men, they got off. They didn't have to pay. They got pardoned. They got clemency. That's why it says in Zechariah 11, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. That's why the Most High is going to hold you guilty. And right now, you're being brought to court. But the thing is, now you're in the sentencing stage. Then after the sentencing stage comes the judgment. So it says, should it be according to thy mind? So should it be according to how you feel? He will recompense it. The Most High is going to recompense it. The Most High is going to pay you back. Whether thou refuse, whether you don't want to accept it, or whether thou choose. So it don't matter if you believe it or not, accept it or not. It don't matter. You still got to pay. And not I, therefore speak what thou knowest. So speak what you know. Let's stick with the facts. Ooh, man, you brothers. All right, let's see. Oh, the elder, Manatazakba. That's the NLT. Okay, Jeremiah 25:28. And it shall be if they refuse. Oh my goodness, this goes hand in hand. And it shall be if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand to drink, then thou shalt say unto them, thus saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of hosts, you shall certainly drink. For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, and should ye be utterly unpunished, you shall not be unpunished. So you got to pay, man. You got to pay. There's no way around it. Now, let's go back to the article. So it says that the disappearance from the records was a part of a fictional story created by the Spanish Empire with the intention of erasing them from history, meaning the Tainos. The Taino people were descendants of the Arawak people who arrived in the Americas approximately 4,000 years before the conquest. Nope. They arrived in the Americas by the time, let's say 1500, because 1492 almost 1500. By the time the 1500s came around, they had been here already like 2,200 years. All right, give or take a couple of decades. Because if you go back 1500 to the beginning, before the BC era, that's 1500 years roughly, and then from that point back is 700, about 700 years. So what's that? That's 2,200 years roughly. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, about 2,200 years. Because 1,500 plus 7 is 22. So this is off, but it says approximately. You're going to see a lot of that, approximately, circa, estimated. And then people think that Esau is the expert in everything. Yeah, they do a lot of research, but they're not the experts. This is why you see circa or estimated or approximately. It says, and they lived in the Bahamas, the Greater Antilles, which are the bigger islands, which Benjamin, they're good for that. You small people island. You're small island people. I said it backwards. Please forgive my Hebrew. It says the Greater Antilles, which are the bigger, islands, and the Lesser Antilles, which are the smaller islands. Christopher Columbus was looking for gold. However, when he did not find it, he focused on what? On the slavery of who? The so-called indigenous peoples, which are the Israelites or the Northern Kingdom. And he knew exactly where he was going. When you watch that movie 1492, Conquest of Paradise, I believe it was called, he had a discourse in there with one of those priests. And the dude said, the Canary Islands or whatever islands he said are no more than 750 leagues this way. And the guy said, the other one said, what makes you so sure? He said the calculations of Tuscany, or however he pronounced that, Magellan. I don't know if he said Magellan. He said Esdras. He said Esdras was a Jew. Yeah, so what does that mean? That means he was reading the Apocrypha. And he knew that the 10 tribes came to this side of the world. He knew exactly where he was going. People think, well, he was just an adventurous explorer. No, he knew exactly where he was going. He didn't just happen to, bump into, the Americas, so-called Americas. He knew exactly where he was going. And it was roughly about 750 leagues. And there was almost a mutiny about to happen because they was like, man, we're heading to nowhere. And then eventually they got here. The Lord made sure that devil got here. Why? Because Jake had to be punished. The northern kingdom had to be punished. The southern kingdom had to be brought here for their punishment. Then the gathering together of the nation that would happen here, beginning with North America, specifically in Harlem, New York. It says, upon arriving on the island, a confrontation occurred between the crew of the Santa Maria and the Taino after the crew sexually abused Taino women. See? So they abused the women that were here. And there's accounts, if you dig deep enough, there's accounts where some of these Taino women, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with y'all today, but some of these Taino women, when they would, when they would get raped and they would get pregnant by these Spaniards, they would commit suicide just not to bring those devil seeds in here. And then you fucking, Latina skanks out there, the ones of you that are skanks, which is the majority of you, you'll get with a white man and bring forth their children and their seed. They're little devils. Now, some of them, granted, are Jakes, but for the most part, you have a lot of Edomites out there too. Then you just bringing the devil's seed. It says in 1503, most of the caciques, which are the chiefs, were captured and burned alive in the Jaragua massacre. And this was another massacre, Jaragua. This is where all of the chieftains, majority of them anyway, were massacred. Let me see, Ovando, what's his name? Right here, Nicolas de Ovando, and there was another devil, Ojeda, I believe the other one was called. He was like his henchman. There was two of them. They were saying, look, come into this hut, this gigantic hut. Come into this gigantic hut, and we're gonna show you how the Spaniards sport. They promised him to show him, a display of these Spaniards, fighting. And what happened was when they got him in there, they burned him up. That's why you never go to, never trust thine enemy. The devil, tell you come here, go there. Hell no, won't go. It says the Jaragua massacre of July 1503 was the killing of indigenous natives from the town of Jaragua on the island of Hispaniola, which is so-called Dominican Republic and Haiti. But in this case, they were in the side of Haiti. I'm sorry, Dominican Republic. It was ordered by the Spanish governor of Santo Domingo, Nicolas de Ovando, and carried out by Alonso de Ojeda. See, so he was the henchman during a native celebration that was held in the village. And I just read recently about it that they were going to show them how the Spaniards, did their sporting, fighting and all that, and they burned them up. And you had a woman, which was a chieftain, which Jake was going off, named Anacaona. Anacaona, she was a chieftain, a woman chieftain, which she wasn't supposed to be no chieftain, and I believe during this time, they burned her alive, if I'm not mistaken. Fray Bartolome de las Casas, which is where you get the atrocities of the Indies, which he wrote, because he was an eyewitness. He drew drawings and everything of what they were doing. They were cutting off the hands and legs, or the feet, the hands and feet, and feeding them to their war dogs of the Taino people, the Ephraimites. And why? Because they weren't. This was like the case of, you didn't pick enough cotton, then you're gonna get your ass whooped. You're gonna get punished. So this was their fault. So they didn't collect enough gold or silver, whatever the case may be. They will cut off their hands and the feet and feed it to their war dogs. So much so that those war dogs they started to get a taste for Taino flesh or Ephraimite flesh. Fray Bartolome de las Casas wrote that in the massacre of the Spanish, the Spanish also attacked the other inhabitants, cutting off the children's legs as they ran. So what do you think is going to happen to you, man? Matter of fact, I'm going to read the scripture that the elder put up. Numbers 35:33. So you shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defileth the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. See, you try to hold yourself not guilty, but the Lord is going to hold you guilty, because this land is polluted from Canada all the way down, but especially North America. And like I always say, through the Spirit, there's a lot of death deaths and a lot of murders that have not been accounted for. You know, just dealing in the Americas. And this is why in Isaiah 26:21 it says, "For behold, Yahweh cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth." Who are the inhabitants of the earth? You Edomites. How do we know it's talking about the Edomites specifically? It says, "For their iniquity, the earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain." So this land is polluted. This is one of the reasons why this place is going to be destroyed. The main reason. That's why the Lord said when he comes back, he's coming back for the controversy of Zion. And the main ones at the head of that are you Edomites. All right? So you're going to pay. So going back, it says, "For several months after the massacre, Nicolas de Ovando continued a campaign of persecution against the Taino until their numbers became very small. According to the historian Samuel M. Wilson in his book Hispaniola, Caribbean Chiefdoms in the Age of Columbus, the Taino suffered physical abuse in the gold mines and sugarcane fields. You know, similar to what Jake went through. No, but just worse. As far as, you know, there was accounts where they made us pretty much dig out or hollow out a whole cave searching for silver and gold. A whole cave. How can you imagine that? Working round the clock till you drop dead just to hollow out a whole cave. You know how hard that is? As well as religion. This is why they had to bring Judah, Benjamin, and Levi to fill in the gaps, because there was a lot of deaths because of the hard conditions that we were subjected to. Remember, we were peaceable people. We weren't used to all of that, the hard work like that. So they put hell on us. And you think you're gonna escape with that? You think that's gonna just go unpunished? Are you out of your fucking mind? You fucking devils are fucking bugged out. You're gonna pay. It says, as well as religious persecution. See, this is that goddamn Renaissance Christianity, which later came to be known as plantation Christianity, which you fucking devils are trying to put us back in. Fuck you and fuck your Christianity. How about that, motherfucker? That fucking slave ass fucking chains in the brain, dogma, doctrine that you're trying to push on us. That fucking religious bullshit. Then you got a nerve to call yourself holy people, but then you give the slaves the slave Bible, which takes out every account of slavery because you didn't want them reading about it and getting the idea to take your ass out. That's why there was so many rebellions in America. People think that slavery, every Jake in slavery just was a good old boy, good old Sambo. No. You had some hardcore Jakes, man, back there that rose up and fucked you up. Had it not been for the curses, you would have been overtaken. Levi, they fucked you devils up. They wanted to come up here to the Americas and slay and free the rest of the Jakes up here. But the Spirit didn't allow that. Why? Because of the curses. That's the only reason that you devils were able to prevail and to do what you've done. Let's go real quick to Isaiah chapter 42 and 22. But this is a people, meaning the Israelites, robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. What are these holes? These holes are these churches. And they are hid. And then, part of the curse was that the Lord was going to pretty much take our heart from us. Matter of fact, let me get that. Try not to open up too many more. What the hell with it? Deuteronomy 28. All right, let me just do it this way to save time. Deuteronomy 28:65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. So we will turn from warriors to cowards. Pretty much. The Lord toned our spirit all the way down. He toned our frequency all the way down, that warrior spirit. Back in Isaiah 42:22, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses, dealing with the same thing with these, with these religions. And pretty much just, if you're not into religion and you're into the American way, political system, this also represents that. They are for a prey, and none delivereth. Why? Because no man shall save thee. How many times, have you had individuals rise up for all of the tribes? Chairman of the board, Fred Hampton. You had the Blackstone Rangers, the Black Panthers. Then you had the Young Lords. You had Albizu Campos. You had Che Guevara. Huh? How many so-called Latino, so-called Black and Latino, and Native American Indian revolutionaries stood up to try to, Marcus Garvey, that's right, to try to Gabriel Prosser, Denmark Vesey. How many Jake and the other tribes, revolutionaries stood up to try to deliver Jake from this, condition and weren't able to? Why? No man shall buy you. No man shall save you. No man shall deliver you. For a spoil and none saith restore. Right, because you're not restoring. You're not giving restoration. You're not giving reparations. You just handing out ass whippings. But you're gonna get your ass whipped when that time comes. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai? That's why the Lord stripped us. He against whom we have sinned. For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon them the fury of his anger. Esau is the whipping stick of the Lord. We were put, Nat Turner, beautiful, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Damn, check that out. It says, and strength, it says, therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, and what? And strength of battle. So the Lord opened up on us. And it has set him on fire round about. That's why when the Spaniards came here, and then the rest of these Edomites, they put hell on us. Denmark Vesey, Yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. Right, because Jake didn't consider these things. They didn't even think about that. They didn't even know why they was, catching hell. Jake, to this day, a majority of them that don't know anything about the truth, still don't know why they're in the ghettos, in the slums. They don't even question it. It's just a way of life. It's just the way they've been programmed. So going back here, it says, the Taino suffered physical abuse in the gold mines and sugarcane fields, as well as religious persecution during the Spanish Inquisition, along with the exposure to disease that arrived with the colonizers. Others were captured and taken to Spain to be traded as what? Slaves. So how were they brought there? On slave ships. Not in the numbers that the Southern Kingdom was brought here to during the transatlantic slave trade. But then again, something else that's not talked about is the sub-Saharan slave trade, which were them, Ishmaelites bringing other Jakes into slavery and captivity. That's not talked about much. The main thing that's on the burner is what? The transatlantic slave trade. But the so-called indigenous peoples of this side, the northern kingdom, were sent. Some of them were sent as slaves over to Spain, over to Portugal, and other places in so-called Europe. So you have a lot of individuals over there that look like so-called white people that are really Ephraimites, Gadites, Manassites, so-called Puerto Ricans, Native American Indians, Cubans, so on and so forth. Dominicans that just happen to look like so-called white people. That's why the Lord is coming to sift the house of Israel from among the nations, which resulted in numerous deaths due to poor human conditions during the journey, right? Just like Judah suffered on the way here. Deplorable conditions, because remember, when we were put on those ships, both northern and southern kingdom, we were put on there as what? Cargo, not humans. We were put on there as cargo. And you don't, put your cargo in the most luxurious spot where it's comfortable for it. So, you can read the rest of this. It's a good article. There was a part in here. Let's see, 1519 indigenous, enormous scale program. Right, here we go. This is under academic discourse. Raphael Lemkin considered Spain's abuses of the native population of the Americans to constitute cultural and even outright genocide, including the abuses of the encomienda system. This was the slavery of the Americas prior, actually the slavery of the Caribbeans and all of the places where the Spaniards conquered that have those Spanish names. It was called the encomienda system, which was the slavery of the time prior to chattel slavery or the transatlantic slavery that was brought here. Now, when we go to the encomienda system, right? The encomienda was a system where Spanish adventurers and settlers were granted the legal right to extract forced labor from indigenous tribal chiefs. See, in the America's colonies of the Spanish Empire, in return, the Europeans were expected to give military protection to the laborers and offer them the opportunity to be converted to Christianity by funding a parish. Now, this brings to mind Cacique Hatue. He was Ephraimite. I believe he was on the island of Hispaniola, or he could have been on Puerto Rico. Remember the Israelite woman on the island of Puerto Rico, inside joke. And when the Spaniards started their onslaught, he fled with a certain amount of men, and they fled to Cuba. And in Cuba, by the time the Spaniards got there, they were up in the mountains. They were doing raids on Esau. They were fucking Esau up. They were tearing his ass up. And then eventually, I think he was betrayed by a Sambo. And eventually he was burnt at the stake. But before they burned him, the priest said to him, you want to convert to Christianity and go to heaven? And he said, will the Spaniards be there? He said, yes. He said, well, that's the place I don't want to go. So he stood 10 toes down. Said, fuck you and your religion. How about that? And that's how we feel about your so-called religion today. Fuck you and your religion. How about that? Shove it up your ass. The encomienda system permitted the Spanish crown to convert its invading army of conquistadors into colonial settlers. But the system's flaws, maltreatment, and significant population reductions from diseases meant that it was eventually replaced by a system of low-paid labor and large estate management. And it got more. You could read more. I just wanted to get the main point. All right. Now, one thing I was reading through the book of Hosea. Now, the book of Hosea, is pretty much an account of prophecies that was going to happen to us during the time of the Assyrian Empire. But it also, a lot of those things parallel here in the Americas. Because let's go real quick before we go there. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy 33, right? And you had Ephraim and you had Manasseh, which you had Joseph. Joseph was the father of Ephraim and Manasseh. All right. This is Deuteronomy 33:13. And Joseph, which means the name Joseph goes back to the Hebrew word Yahweh. Yah is he. Wasap, Yahweh is he will add. Why was he called Joseph or Yahweh? He will add because from him came two sons, which the scripture spoke about. Because when Jacob gave him a blessing, he said that these two, Ephraim and Manasseh, are mine. As Simeon and Levi are mine, I believe he said. So he would add them, or they would be added as two tribes to the nation of Israel. But he said, any other children you have, those are yours. But no, there's no account of Joseph ever having any more children. But if he did, those they're still Israelites, but they're just still a part of Israel. But he did say, if you have any other children, those are yours. All right. So it says, and of Joseph, he said, blessed of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Shai be his land, for the precious things of heaven, for the dew and for the deep that coucheth beneath. And this is a reference to the latter days. All right. And the island of Puerto Rico is beautiful. And it's just not the island of Puerto Rico, because you have Cuba, you have the Dominican Republic / Haiti, all of those, the Bahamas, all of those, the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles, all of those islands that are grouped down like it looks like a shoulder going down into South America. Those are all inhabited by Arawak, Taino. That was the Northern Kingdom. All right, that was Ephraim, Manasseh, Simeon, and other tribes. Later, when they brought Judah, Benjamin, and Levi here, then they started inhabiting those lands those islands, because the population of the Northern Kingdom was dwindling because of the mistreatment. Just, man, forget about it. So this is talking about that the deep that couches beneath. That's the islands, and those islands are beautiful. You have a lot of tropical fruits, tropical birds, tropical, everything beautiful. Right? It says, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, right? And you have precious fruits, you have exotic fruits that grow out there. You have there was another word, I can't think of it right now. But it's all right. You get the idea. Those of you brothers that may be from Jamaica or Haiti or Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or some of those other places, about the fruits that are there, the guava and the mangoes and and the soursop and all of those exotic fruits. And for the precious things put forth by the moon, right? Because the moon is what gives also the sun, the moon, rain, and all that all gives the crops the necessary nutrients to be able also to grow. It says, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, right? Because you had a lot of them that ran to the mountains. How does that go? There's a song called Vámonos pa'l monte. Let's go to the mountains. Pa'l monte, pa Guarachal. In other words, let's go to the mountains and let's go out there and play our music, for lack of better words. Let's go out there and jam out. All right. And for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. Right. And then usually when they show you things of like Puerto Rico and Jamaica, Haiti, they show you like the worst parts. But then when these devils go down there, they show you the beautiful parts of it that are still preserved to this day. It says, and for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, right? Strong. And his horns, or his power, which goes into um, the ability for the beginning with the tribe of Ephraim to gather or to be a leader to the rest of the 10 tribes. It says, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns, right? Which is what? This is the internet. And it's not a coincidence that some of the first people to wake up, or the first people to wake up to this truth, is Judah. Then you had Benjamin in there. Then you had a Manassite brother years ago, Daniela. Then you start Ephraim was up in there. It's not a coincidence that it was Judah and Ephraim coming together at that time. You see? It says, with them he shall push the people together to the end of the earth. So we over on this side of the world, and it was Judah, right? And then Ephraim that started to gather things together. The Lord said that he will, fill the bowl with Ephraim, bend the bowl with Judah, and fill the bowl with Ephraim. Those are two major tribes that bring together all of the other tribes. And this is what Esau is nervous of, scared of. And that's why they're always trying to demonize this truth, because they see the prophecies coming to pass, and they're like, nah, we can't have this. We got to set up some kind of deterrence. It says, with them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Okay. So when you go back to the time of prior to the Assyrian captivity, you had the northern kingdom was taken down. The capital was Samaria, where Ephraim was at, land of Ephraim. And Ephraim, back then, during the time of the Assyrians, right, they were the first to be taken down. And then the other northern kingdom tribes were conquered and brought over to Assyria. Here in the Americas, the first tribe that was conquered was Ephraim. Hosea chapter 5, right? And verse 9, Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of rebuke. Among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which shall surely be, meaning in the future. So Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of the rebuke. So first tribe back then to go into captivity under the Assyrians was Ephraim. First tribe to go into captivity under the Spaniards, which are Edomites, were the Ephraimites. Among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which shall surely be. All right. Now this is just a little footnote here in the 7th verse for Israel becoming strange. They have dealt treacherously against Yahweh Bashem Shai, worshiping idols, for they have begotten strange children. See? And what are those strange children? Those are Israelite foreigners being taught the ways of the other nations. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. This is just a little side nugget. This is Hosea chapter 8 and 1. Set the trumpet to thy mouth. Now keep in mind, a lot of these prophecies happened during the Assyrian Empire, and they also happened during the time when the Spaniards came over here. It says, set the trumpet to thy mouth. He, meaning Esau, shall come as an eagle against the house of Yahweh Bashem Shai. And consequently, the Edomites, their main symbol as they conquered from empire to empire was the eagle. The Greeks carried the eagle, the Romans carried the eagle, the Spanish carried the eagle, the French carried the eagle, Germans, British. Now check this out. This is the flag of Spain. I can't really read the part behind his neck, but it says una, which is one, gran, which is great, something, de is of, libre. Una gran something, one great something of liberty or of freedom. I can't really, make out what's behind them. So this is their eagle. This is Spain. This is Spanish flag. All right. This is not a coincidence. So Hosea 8:1 set the trumpet to thy mouth. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem El Shai, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. So by the time that the Spaniards came here, Jake was going totally off. And that's why the Lord allowed them to be conquered. You had the Semis prior to the Odishas, or from the Yoruba tribes, the Yoruba Odishas coming here. And when the Yoruba Odishas came here, what happened? They just replaced the Semis pretty much. And I'm sure they still got them out there. Now, watch this. Odishas. Right? Odisha. There are divine spirits that play a key role in the Yoruba religion of West Africa and several religions of the African diaspora that derive from it, such as Haitian voodoo, Cuban, Dominican, and Puerto Rican. All right. So you have among the so-called Indian, tribes, you have, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And that's why it says of Ephraim, right? Let's go real quick to the fifth. I believe it's the fifth chapter. Nope. Let's go to the fourth chapter. It says, Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. All right. Remember, you had Jeroboam that brought forth the what? The two calves. Put one in Bethel and the other one in Dan. So they wouldn't go back to Rehoboam and back to Judah, even though some of them did anyways. All right. So you devils, you got to pay. This is, and another thing, when we were reading in these documents, they were saying that the tribes, the so-called Taino were extinct, which is a damn lie. This is the book of Jeremiah 33:23. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, saying, Considerest thou not what this people have spoken, saying, The two families, which are the two kingdoms, which the Lord hath chosen, he hath even cast them off. Thus they have despised my people, that they should be no more a nation before them. See, they were trying to just wipe us out. Thus saith Yahweh, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinance of heaven and earth, then will I cast away the seed of Jacob and David my servant, so that I will not take any of his seed to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the promise. For I will cause their captivity to return and have mercy on them. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. Come on, man. Then when you go to the 31st chapter of the same, right, and the 35th verse, it says, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai, was given the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divided the sea when the waves thereof roar. Yahweh Bashem El Shai of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith Yahweh Bashem El Shai, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me. So Israel's still here. You tried to wipe us out, but you can't. Just like you try to wipe Jake out, in the ghettos, in the hood, in the barrios, by giving them bad food, bad meat, bad diets, bad liquor, and you drink all the good shit. Well, the scriptures say you're not in trouble as other people. So you're gonna have to pay for all of this, man. I'll leave you with this one precept here in the book of Exodus 21. I'm sorry, not 21. Is that 11:16? Nope. What is it? Is it 21:16? Yep. Exodus 21:16. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. So this is what you got to look forward to. Death, destruction. That's it. Slavery. That's what you're going to do. You're going to drink of it. You and the other nations. Matter of fact, let me leave you with this one. Obadiah. Love going here. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 15. For the day of Yahweh Bashem Shai is near upon all the heathen, the actual heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. So whatever you've done, that's what you got to look forward to. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. For as you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall the heathen drink what? Continually. 1,000 years, then Esau is going to be wiped out, but the other nations are going to continue to drink. But they're going to get their own lands. They ain't going to catch hell like that. They're going to be happy. That's why they're waiting for us to get into power. Because they know even though they're going to get their ass beat, they're going to get a fair shake. Yea, they shall drink and they shall swallow down. You ain't going to have no choice. We had to drink it, then you're going to have to drink it. And they shall be as though they had not been, because you're going to be slaves. You're not going to have any rights. You're just going to be property. Just like we were property, you're going to be property. All right? But upon Mount Zion shall be what? Deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. All right? And after that 1,000 years, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. So this hasn't happened yet, but it will. Esau is the end of the world. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh Bashem Yahushai have spoken it. See? So you got a lot to pay for, man. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.